Ferocious fighting in parts of Tripoli as Libyan rebels move to the capital to take their new seat of power. Colonel Gaddafi remains elusive, but at the UN, Libya's new leaders are handed control of $1.5 billion of frozen assets. Battening down the hatches, residents along America's east coast prepare for Hurricane Irene. Hello, welcome to BBC World News. I'm Martine Dennis.
And I'm Aaron Heslehurst. Coming up later in the World Business Report, financial markets await the great speech from Jackson Hole. Will the world's most powerful banker pump more money into the flagging US economy? And growing concerns over Japan's economy as the country prepares for its 6th Prime Minister in 5 years.
The fighting rages on in parts of Tripoli, but the rebel leadership believes it has a strong grip on the capital and says it's transferring the government there from its base in Benghazi. Colonel Gaddafi's whereabouts remain unknown. His spokesman says he's still in command and capable of withstanding the battle for weeks, months and years. The heaviest fighting's continued near Gaddafi's former compound in the capital. Daniel Griffiths has the latest.
A city at war. Street by street, the rebels are taking on the last of Colonel Gaddafi's supporters in Tripoli. This is Abu Salim, a stronghold of the former leader. Progress is slow and uncertain. Here, rebels have captured men they say are Colonel Gaddafi's foreign mercenaries. Some of them are bundled into pickup trucks. The battle for Tripoli has brought normal life to a halt. There's little electricity, no safe water supplies. The hospitals have been at full stretch in recent days, although some appear to be quieter now. The chaos in Tripoli hasn't stopped the National Transitional Council announcing that it's moving to the capital from its base in Benghazi.
I proclaim the beginning of and the resumption of the work of the Executive Office in Free Tripoli as of this moment.
Meanwhile, the NTC received some good news after the United Nations agreed a deal to release $1.5 billion of Libyan assets to pay for humanitarian aid. But what of Colonel Gaddafi? His whereabouts remain unknown. In a television message, he urged his supporters to continue fighting. Rebel fighters are advancing on the city of Sirte, Colonel Gaddafi's birthplace and power base. But that battle could take days. The rebels are tightening their grip, but this war is far from over. Daniel Griffiths, BBC News.
So now that the diplomatic wrangle's been resolved at the United Nations and the rebel leadership will be able to take control of frozen Libyan assets, of course thoughts now turn to the future, and the BBC's UN correspondent Barbara Plett looks at what role the UN might play in the coming months and years.
They often disagreed about the war, so can they now agree about the peace? During the past 5 months, Libya has gripped the Security Council, and the issue isn't going away.
It was the UN which gave legal authority to NATO's bombing campaign during the Libya war. But now that the conflict is dying down, all the talk here is about what comes next, about what role the UN should play in a post-Gaddafi Libya.
It will have a role in at least 3 key areas. Libya got expensive military aid from the West. Now there's talk of helping the country rebuild. The UN will be part of the international effort to establish a functioning economy, but its most pressing task is to lift the sanctions imposed to weaken Gaddafi. Rebel leaders say they have no money to meet even basic needs. They're pleading for billions of dollars in frozen Libyan assets. On Thursday, the UN released some of the money, but it's a slow and complicated process. Libya's ragtag rebel army, or NTC, has been very successful at gaining international recognition. Its allies met here in Istanbul to help chart the future. But now it has to win domestic support. There are even divisions among the rebels themselves.
Thank you very much.
The UN has experience in organizing elections in post-conflict situations. Its political chief says this expertise will be crucial.
There is going to be a serious political issue in Libya with the divisions of people, but frankly, when you let people participate in a democratic process, many of those issues melt away rather quickly, and that's what we want to help the NTC and others to do, to have an inclusive process that brings people into the process, that they can see that they have a way to make their own decisions, and that lowers the internecine fighting, we hope.
When the war ends, there will still be a lot of young men with a lot of guns. The UN will want them disarmed and is ready to help, but as yet there's no plan to send peacekeepers or other troops. Diplomats here will need to roll all of this into a new UN mandate. They were deeply divided over NATO's military role in supporting the rebels, but are expecting a smoother ride now.
I have no doubt that the Security Council can work together, and I'm sure it will, when it comes to issues like inclusive political processes and reconstruction work. The Security Council is good at those things. The Security Council is not always on the same page when proposals are made for military action.
International support was critical for turning the rebels into a force that could defeat Gaddafi. The question now is whether it can help turn them into a force that establishes democracy for the first time in their country. Barbara Plett, BBC News at